This painting.
These 4 colors.
Let's go. My name is Daniel. I'm the owner and founder of the Raminfard School of Arts.
And my name is Lonnie, and I'll be your co-host. Okay, so you have all of your art supplies, you've got all your colors. Where do we start?
Well, we're going to start painting.
Yep.
But the big mistake that almost every student makes, especially when they're new to drawing and painting, or if you happen to be starting back up again, is that they rush through the project using every available color to them.
Yep.
That's a bad idea.
Yeah, got to scale it back a little bit.
Yes. The Zorn Palette is great because it offers a massive range of both cool and warm colors. And as you'll see, is pretty convincing.
Yeah. So why this painting?
It's not too complicated. It's not a figure or a face.
Yeah.
There's a lot of detail in there, but it's easy to manage the basic shapes.
Yeah.
And that's really what we care about.
I see we have a blank canvas.
That's what we're starting with, Lonnie. So the question is why did we choose it?
Yeah.
Well, because it's simple. It's not overly complicated, and it's something that can be easily done in the Zorn palette.
Yes.
So we're going to do this using only 4 colors. So before we start, let's talk about the materials that we're going to use in this phase. I have a panel, 8x16. This is the professional series, and it's made by Winsor Newton. Really happy with this, right? It's made on a hard board. This thing isn't going to warp on you.
Yeah.
Let's give it a quick sanding.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to draw that. First line that I see right here, it kind of moves across, and I'm just going to make that indication, and that's it. Then I'm going to jump up top and jump over here, and I'm just trying to get like big, huge general shapes.
Yeah. Trees are something that are really easy to overcomplicate.
Yes, I love that. That's exactly right. Very easy to make this way more complicated than it needs to be, so on and so forth. You're exactly right, because I think what everyone does is they start to draw into way too high resolution. You know what's a great way to think about all of this? Construction paper. Like when we were kids and we cut it up.
Cut out the shape.
It's like get your construction shapes down, everyone. It's that. I really like this swoop right here. So there we have swooping cloud. You want to keep a light touch to this so that it remains erasable. Now I'm using an unusually dark pencil. As you know, we actually use the drafting pencil.
Yes.
But I'm using this one just so that the camera will pick up everything that I'm putting down. Oh, I love this. There's like another tree. A lot of it will change once we get color down.
Yeah.
Okay, so drawing phase is over.
Complete.
So we're outside of the studio. I've got this stuff called Fine Art Fixative. It's by Krylon. It's what we use here at the studio. And when you spray it, shake it up, you're gonna be about 6 to 8 inches away, side to side, up and down, and then side to side again. And we're gonna let that sit for about 3 minutes and we're ready to paint. All right, so here's everything that we need to make this painting. So we have 4 different colors here: our titanium white, our yellow ochre, our cadmium red light, and our ivory black. These are your standard Q-tip. These are great to have, and I got all of these on Amazon. I use walnut oil. I find it to be a better medium than linseed oil. Linseed oil tends to dry yellow. This tends to dry far less yellow. I've got a number of brushes here ranging from size 8 all the way down to size 2. And these guys are synthetics. They're really nice, really soft brushes. They're great for laying in paint. They're the Ruby Satin series, and it's something that we carry here at the studio. I've got a palette knife for mixing colors and for scraping. I also have some napkins here, anything that's lint-free. And I have my thinner jar, and this has Gamsol in it. So when students first start painting, I think one of the things that they get really confused about is when to use the walnut oil and when to use the paint thinner, Gamsol. So the best time to use your paint thinner obviously is going to be when you do your wash. And then the second best time to use it is during your first layer, because you want something that's thin and will dry fast. So I'm going to use only this during my first layer. Thereafter, I'm either going to use the walnut oil in my paint to make it nice and slick, or if I want it to dry a little faster, I'll use something called Simple Medium, which is a 50-50 mixture of these two. Here's the test, right? You always want to do this.
Yep.
If it's smudging all over the place, it's not fixed enough. So, brush, paint, we're going to use yellow ochre.
Why yellow ochre?
Because choosing what color you want for your underpainting, it boils down to two basic questions. So the first question is, what color do I want to shine through if I miss a spot? So if I miss a spot here, 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 well, the overwhelming color that I would be okay with it shining through wouldn't be our red, would not be our black, and definitely is not going to be our white.
No.
So yellow is the only option that you're left with. But I think that the yellow cuts it. Let's get this thing washed.
Yeah.
Got my terp jar.
Yeah.
And I'm going to dilute this to 1 part paint, 9 parts thinner. So to show you folks at home, you want something like this. And here we go. Is my painting upside down? I think it is.
Yep. Indeed.
That's all right.
Yep.
That's all right. As we all know, we paint upside down here at the Raminfard School of Arts.
Yeah.
Why do we paint upside down here, Ilani?
It's easier to not focus on the subject and rather what makes up the subject.
Yes. It helps you pivot from the subject matter to basic shapes,
Yeah.
right? And keep focused on that. So I highly recommend painting upside down from time to time. And once this is dry, we're going to lay it down with color.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get to work. We're going to start off with our sky because I like to move from the back, moving forward. And I'm using my biggest brush because that's what I want to lay everything in. Again, I'm using plenty of thinner. I want the consistency of melted ice cream. And I'm going to use just a little bit of that black and mostly white. And as I paint, I'm squinting. I'm making sure that my focus is really on getting these very subtle shapes. I also see this color way up here, somewhere in this space, and then right over here. By the way, I hold my brush way down here because I want to use my shoulder to paint, not my elbow and not my wrist. When you get into detail, then you can really choke the brush and get really fine. But in the beginning stages, I highly recommend holding it as far back as you can, almost like a sword fight. Let's block out that pink. I think it's a little too dark actually. Reads a lot lighter. Let's get some white in there. There we go. So this color right here is just red and white. I would say about 10% red and the rest of it all white. Anywhere else, I feel like it does kind of roll across right into here. I feel like that color is appropriate. And that hot is going to have a huge impact on the, see what we have here, something like that, I think. Try to keep my edges a little soft, right? So, like I said, it's got to be almost a little blurred, and then you'll fine tune it, you'll adjust. And if I miss a spot in terms of those tree holes coming through, no big deal. We'll just paint them right on top. And especially with something like trees, I'm not hell-bent on getting exact shapes. I want you guys to let go of that. In the beginning, you're just trying to lay down color. A little more red, a little more black right here in this corner. Right along here. You'll notice that has a form to it, right? There's the light, there's the dark. Same thing here, there's the light, there's the dark. Now I've heard other instructors say never add straight black to your canvas. I would say 99% of the time that's true. There are very rare occasions where you actually do want straight black or straight white onto your canvas. But for the most part, straight black or straight white is so stark that it flattens everything else out. It kind of destroys your painting. So I do think that that's sound advice. All right, I like how we preserve that triangle right there. That space is really important. So I'm going to switch over to a 4 right now. I'm going to take a little bit of this sky color and add it into these guys. Why is that? Well, these trees right here sit further back in the painting than this one. This one is up close and up front, and this one almost is in our midground. So it makes a lot of sense to use a little bit of the atmosphere, the color of the sky, in our paint in order to give it distance. And we call this atmospheric perspective. This is one of the ways that we trick people into believing that something is further back and in the distance. One of the things I want to mention is just because I have a drawing underneath doesn't mean that I blindly obey what's there. I still need to draw. I still need to reconsider, well, is that in the right place? Is it too big? Is it too small? Is there anything I can do to make it a stronger shape? So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm just kind of looking to see, well, what things can I add to this to make it a little bit stronger? And really it boils down to two questions. What can I add or take away to make this shape stronger? And again, there's these rich colors from down below. I'm really tempted to put that tree trunk in there, but if I put that in too early, then I'm going to get stuck. This reads as a solid mass, but this does not. So let's wipe that out. So as it rolls over, it starts to get a little more saturated, a little more red. So I'm definitely seeing a color like this that kind of overpowers. And that color might be just a little bit too muted, but let's see. Let's see how it works against what we're trying to paint. So anytime you're asking yourself, do I have the right color? You probably don't know until you've got most of your colors down. I know I have the right color as compared to this, as compared to this, as compared to this. But in areas like here, I don't have any information. So I can't really judge it. Get back some of those darks again. Picking up quite a bit of that pink. So let's make that work. All right, sitting way in the back there at a much lighter color. It's like some of these trees back here, the tops of them. I got something going on here too. And I do see that sky kind of poking through, but it's easier for me to just mass in this large shape and then stick everything else on top. And again, I'm just trying to get the general shape, general color, general value in to make this all work. Okay, definitely see some cool green, cool grays down here. And by the way, we could make green if we wanted, and we might even add a little green in there using black and yellow, but we shall see. We shall see if that's an appropriate color. Again, I'm keeping the color thin. There's no texture here. It's really, really thin. There's plenty of paint thinner because the last thing you want to do is for the paint to dry and there's this thick paint that you have to battle, and then you move something over and you can kind of see that something else was sitting underneath. And I think that's it. All of this is going to be fine-tuned with smaller brushes. So this first layer is done. This is the only layer where I'm using exclusively paint thinner. After this, we're going to use our medium. Okay, so a few days have passed since our first layer, and I'm going to check to see what parts of this are dry, what parts of it are wet. And it looks like all the areas that have a great deal of white in them is the slowest to dry, and that's always been the case with oil paints. So always keep that in mind, that if you're using something where there's a lot of white, that's going to take a much longer time to dry. So even after 3 days, we still have a bit of that is still wet, a little bit over here, but everything else feels pretty much dry. So what that means is, at this point, we are going to work wet paint onto dry paint. Normally, if it had been completely dry, we would wipe oil all over it to allow for the paint to be nice and slick and move across. If we didn't like what we painted, we could wipe it off. And in subsequent videos, I will show you that process. We may even get the opportunity on our third layer. But for now, we're going to walk through our second layer where we're refining all of this using paint that has medium in it and apply it directly onto the canvas. Now, the medium that we are using is oil and thinner. Those two combined is called simple medium. And the only reason why I'm not using just straight oil, for example, is that the thinner allows it to dry faster. So you could use straight oil if you'd like, or if you're looking for a solvent-free environment, you can use only oil all throughout the entire process. You just have to wait longer for it to dry. I'm excited to show you guys this process. We're gonna work on layer 2. Again, as a reminder, our first layer, we use paint thinner to get it to dry fast. And then subsequent layers, we will use our medium. So we'll walk you through step by step this whole process, and here we go. Okay, so I'm gonna start off with the size 4. This is a silver brush, which I really like. Let's tack the sky first, because general pattern that we want is to move from the back to the midground and into the front. So I'm starting off with some white, gonna get some black in here. And again, because of all these hot colors, that black is actually gonna read blue. And that's the genius of the Zorn palette. As I get towards the edges, I'm gonna soften up my brush, much looser grip on there, and try to really keep that edge soft. And I also wanna break this space up. I wanna put in these sky holes to help it make it look like the sky is shining through. And if it gets a little big, no problem. We will be covering it. I see this color here, so I'm gonna definitely bring that in right around there. Let's get that pink in there right about there. And by the way, your colors don't need to be an exact match. In fact, I think it's a lot prettier when the colors are slightly off. And that way, that's what gives the painting a hand-painted feel. This idea of getting the exact color, first of all, it's impossible. And then secondly, it makes the painting feel a little overly stiff. You definitely want to have the right color temperature. That's for sure. You want to make sure that your colors are, this is nice and hot, this is a little bit cooler, this is nice and hot and dark. So your values and your color temperature need to be right. But this idea of getting the exact color, I think, is crazy. Get something really, really close. I've got my eyes squinted as I'm putting down this layer. And what you'll notice is that the first layer that I put down is really thin. It's almost transparent. That's how thin down it is. And then this feels a little bit thicker. So as we paint, we're gonna get thicker and thicker and thicker, and hence the term fat over lean paint. Now, when you first start painting, most people use way too much paint and it's way too thick. And I wanna advise against that. You actually need a lot less paint than you think. You need just enough to cover. That's it. You don't want texture. You don't want to build heavy amounts. You want to slowly get to that finish line where it's nice, big, heavy colors. Because once that texture is there and it dries, very difficult to remove. You have to actually use a palette knife and scrape it off of the canvas and risk damaging other parts of the painting. So I'm kind of scanning around looking where else am I seeing colors here? That gray could definitely go down here. So there's all this movement in terms of the tree holes. And again, I'm squinting down hard. I don't need all that information. I just need the bare minimum because it's so richly saturated with details. So I'm showing a great deal of restraint. I am not jumping in to get every detail. Artists are very driven by that, but we have to discipline ourselves to save that to the end. I know what you're thinking, Lonnie.
What am I thinking?
You're thinking that this is right in the middle of the painting. It's not looking like the final product.
Yeah.
You're anxious to get it done, and maybe you should start over. Right?
Maybe.
Most artists.
Maybe.
Most artists. They all do this. This is what we call the messy middle here at the studio. And everybody goes through this phase where they're in the middle of their painting and they're thinking, well, there's issues coming up, so let's abandon ship and start all over again. I don't advise that.
Yeah. Get through it.
Get through it. That's fantastic advice.
Yeah.
Let's fix those problems.
Yeah.
Let's work through them step by step and really make it work.
Yeah.
So switching over to this size 2, which is a little tighter, I'm going to move into this area and get that cooler color in. And isn't it amazing? This is just straight black and white. It's a gray. On the palette, it reads very, very flat. But as compared to all of the hot colors in this, that's how powerful color temperature is, right? This is flat gray going on top of really hot colors. I'm trying to push these cool tones as much as I can so that the hot colors really pop off of it. And I don't want to eliminate what's there, right? I don't want to get rid of that, but I certainly want to push as often as I can a cooler tone to really get that beautiful contrast of warm and cool, warm and cool. I think it's also important to mention that the approach that I'm taking in all of this is to get approximately the right shapes in the right place. I am not going to kill myself to get this perfect. It's a very different story when it comes to portraiture or figures, but with landscapes, you've got a lot of freedom. And rather than trying to copy exactly what you see, you really want to interpret. I may even push this all the way through. Now I know I'll cover that, right? I'm overemphasizing how cold that color is. There's like a streak right there. Just bringing that in. Trying to get it nice and flat across. Maybe it peeks through right there just a bit. I definitely see a little bit of this cool tone here. So at this point, I've stepped away from the camera. I'm stepping back, trying to get a read for how it looks at a distance. Looks good. And I'm just coming in from a different angle now on the other side of the camera, as you can see, and just trying to see what else can I add to this. And I do this often. I change my position because it changes the view of how I'm actually looking at the canvas, which is important. I'll even turn the whole thing upside down and have my canvas completely upside down along with my image. And that is one of the only and few benefits that I think it's actually the only benefit I can think of off of working a photograph. I prefer to work from life, but turning it upside down gives me yet another opportunity to think of it as purely shapes, which is how I'm supposed to think about painting. That's my second layer, that's it. So it's been a few days and I'm ready to put on our third layer. And this is what I recommend for all beginning artists to do. We're gonna start with our drawing, we're gonna do our wash, we're gonna lay in our blocks, then we're gonna refine it, and then finally, this is the finish. So I'm really excited about this phase. This is where the painting really comes to life. It's not easy to paint. You're gonna come across problems, but we're gonna work through as many of them as we can through this video. So I'm excited to share this with you. If you have any questions, please fill them in the comments, and I'll be happy to answer. Again, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and kindly subscribe to our channel for more information. All right, here we go. So the brush I'm using, this is a size 0, and it's still a flat, but significantly smaller brush than what we've used before. And the idea is to really start to pop in details. So I'm coming in real tight. I've got my eyes squinted, and especially with this object up close and up front, I'm gonna try and get as much of the details as I can without getting too fussy. And again, the best way to ruin your painting is to copy what you see. What I'm trying to do is give you a sense of what's happening rather than verbatim and shape by shape copying everything but down to the detail. As long as the general shape is there, especially with a landscape, you'll be in good shape if you just get most of the information down without truly copying it. Where does the color change and where is it darkest? That's what I'm looking for. Because this right here, the color that's on my brush is a color that lands between my lights and my darks. Mixing a lighter color and trying to get that in here. I love the beautiful contrast between these hot colors against that cool sky. Really works out beautifully. And even though I know that it's a gray, it reads like a blue against these really hot tones. And that's proof that it's really not about the color, but the relationship between colors. And the key to getting the branches feeling right is making sure that we add them where they fade in and fade out. So you see what that looks like when we get there. So I have here a mixture of black with a little bit of red. Kind of fades in and out. I see a break right about here, kind of comes out. And again, I'm looking to kind of mimic the look, right? And I'm coming in with a lot of variation. There's some really thin ones that are a little lighter, ones that barely, like you barely see, they're very faint. There's no branch here, but I feel like this is a great opportunity to show one. So if I miss some of these tree holes or the sky holes coming through the trees, you can always put them on right on top. Beautiful, beautiful yellow colors that kind of land right here. And if you find yourself thinking, well, every time I look at my landscape or dog or whatever it is that you're painting, you see something new, that's totally normal. And you might wonder, well, how did I miss that? Well, it's because you were focused on something else. Painting is largely about switching your view. It's about perception and thinking first globally and then into your mids and then into your smalls and then into your detail. So what I'm doing is softening the edges so that it really feels like it's disappearing and then coming back. I'm gonna go back to my branch color, a really rich dark tone. I see a branch like right there, worth putting in. So I bet you guys want to see all of this done with the same level of detail as this, but that would be a mistake. You want this to sit back. So we're going to put less detail and we're actually going to use a slightly larger brush. Here's the brush I'm going to use. It's a size 2. It's significantly larger. I'm going to actually use colors that are a little more muted and a little more pushed back, somewhat lighter, so that this pops forward and this sits in the midground. Because again, that's my background, the sky. My midground are these lower trees and these upper trees. And my foreground is everything that's happening here. What I need is these colors here and these colors here mixed together to make these colors. That way, this whole area has atmosphere and it's kind of knocked back and doesn't compete, because what you don't want is a competition for attention between here and here. This is kind of the underplane, that's why that's darker right here too. Coming in with warmer colors on this side, it's like less yellow and a little bit more red here. Some of it gets really hot. So I don't mind adding that red, but we just gotta be careful not to get too crazy. So I'm gonna work in some of that red that we were talking about. Just wanna be careful that it's not too intense and it doesn't compete. It's a little undersaturated. And everything else I think looks okay. So down here, we wanna keep these light. I'm gonna cool down my color right here. Get a little more contrast in there, which is very unusual, but I think it works in this area. So I mixed a color here that is definitely not as dark as here. It's actually closer to this color, and that's going to be my branch colors. So it's got a pinch of white in there with red and black, and the way that I'm going to lay them in is going to be slightly different. Whereas here it's like super refined. This I'm going to go a little more jagged and loose. Not caring too much about exactness. You can't really see it, but I'm squinting my eyes a lot to just read value, how light and dark things are. I feel pretty good about this. I think that's a good spot to pause. There are two questions I ask myself when I think I might be done. The first one is there anything I can add to this to make it stronger? Could I add more red here? Could I cool down this area? What can I add? And then the second question is what can I take away? Is there some part of it that might feel overwhelming, where let's say the sky needs to be even wider or larger or something of that nature? Or do I need to maybe take away some of this information here to make the piece read better? And I also want to add not to get too caught up with perfecting your painting. The real end game of all of this is to perfect your skills. You want to get better and better and better at the process of painting and focus your attention on perfecting that. So good luck to you. Let's get painting, guys. Lonnie, what did we learn?
We learned to keep it simple.
Right?
Yeah.
To work through basic shapes.
Yep.
Not to focus on detail.
Stick to the basics.
Make sure that our values are strong.
Yeah.
That we have a good range of warm and cool colors.
Mm-hmm.
Not to get too fixated on getting the exact color.
Yeah. Not to overcomplicate things.
And when do details come in?
At the end.
That's right.
Yeah.
And most importantly, to pick and choose those details, right?
Yeah. Yeah, don't copy. Design.
I hope that you enjoyed this video. We have many more that I'd love for you to look through. Please give us some comments, some likes.
Yeah.
Subscribe.
Yeah. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching. See you soon.
Yeah.
Oh, did I make it dirty?
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. Did we inhale all of that?
Probably.
Oh God. Note my initials.
Doctor.
DR. And note my coffee stain. It cuts the mustard. Get it? Get it? Because it's yellow ochre. No. Crickets. Okay.